Well, Dave, welcome back to our wood technology series. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thought we could talk a little bit about maybe the history of some of lumber manufacturing, but namely maybe some of the naming architecture and size callouts and some of those things that, let's face it, no matter how familiar you are with it, it's still pretty confusing. We could make a case for confusion any day of the week probably, but maybe you could touch base just on some of the early mills and some of the research that you've done that you shared with me.
Sure. You know, I get this from new students coming in, and you go to a lumber yard and you hear the lumber yard speak, oh, you need 18 2x4 I think so, it's completely confused. We have a certain way of speaking, and a lot of it dates back to very, very early times. So as far as sawmilling go, I mean, when you think about it, I tell them how lucky they are, because normally you'd have to split, way back when, you'd split a log in half by hand, and then you take these ribbon boards and use hand planes and hand saws to mill everything up. And it must have taken forever.
Nothing.
This is why we have apprentices. So at any rate, we started looking back, and as far as this country is concerned, we trace it back to the 1800s, and this is a little north of Albany, New York, and to a religious community called the Shakers. And the story goes that Tabitha Babbitt, and Babbitts are a pretty remarkable family, but Tabitha Babbitt is sitting in her spinning wheel, and she's got this circular spinning wheel, and she's looking outside and seeing her brothers, and they're bucking up some wood, so they're ripping with a double handled saw, and she's going, wow. So she says, why can't we take a circle and put some teeth on it like my spinning wheel? And sure enough, they were tin knockers, and they went ahead and they made this out of tin, and it worked. By 1808, they were actually able to have a profitable sawmill. And I can only imagine it must have spread like wildfire all over the North New England area. And obviously, as the West was settled and everything, we started moving this machinery out. But what was interesting about it was that they didn't call out thicknesses. They had numbers, and they could adjust the saw, the head saw, they called it a buzz saw. They could adjust it about every 1/4 inch. Okay. So you had numbers like 1 through 16. And, give me 12 quarters. Well, 12 divided by 4 is 3. So give me a 3-inch piece. 4/4, which we think of all the time, 4 divided by 4 is 1. Yeah. Now, this is rough sawn. So all their stuff was rough sawn. And the amazing thing is this continued all the way through. And we still use those terms today. We use it more for hardwoods than we use for softwoods, because softwoods are now milled. So I've got one from a student that brought it in from a little remodeling project that they had. And this is actually a 2x4. It's 2 inches thick and it's 4 inches wide, as opposed to a 2x4 these days, which is 1.5 inches thick and 3.5 inches wide. And the reasoning for this is very interesting. A lot of it has to do with merchandising too, but we have grading standards now. We bring it down to the same thickness no matter what. Depending, a 2x from one mill may have been a little different from 2x from another.
That's true.
So now we have grading standards for this as well, but it all started back with the quarter system. So that kind of permeated everything back east, and this is what we got until the 20s. Now in the 20s, we started to actually get into grading of wood and making it all a standard size. And by 1964, they'd actually come down to, this is what we're going to do from now on. And so we call this is the quarter system, this is rough wood, and this is dimension lumber.
Yeah.
Okay. And their standards were anything less than 2 inches rough was considered a board.
Okay.
Between 2 inches and 5 inches rough was considered lumber. And anything greater than 5 inches rough was a timber. Now, with these new standards, if I go from a 2x4, you say, well, geez, I'm not paying for a 2x4 here. It's not 2 inches and it's not 4 inches. But what you're paying for is all the value added by having it milled, by having it smooth, by having the edges eased. Yeah. And these are the standards that we work with. Dimension lumber, and then also rough lumber. Yeah. And we don't often get this at Dunn Lumber.
No, you're right. My decades in the business have been in the dimensional lumber world, finished products. You're right. Whenever it came on my radar, was when a customer asked me to source some type of hardwood typically, and I'd call the wholesaler and, hey, what do you want? 4/4, 6/4, 8/4. That was Greek to me, really. So I really appreciate this education. Thank you, sir.